Good evening, everyone. As introduced, my name is Dr. Beena, Regulatory Affairs Manager, Head, either way, whichever you want to choose. So the topic that was given to me was leveraging regulatory frameworks and local manufacturing to combat counterfeits and substandard health products in Africa. So I remember when Lucy called me and she gave me this topic, I thought, where does local manufacturing come in terms of counterfeits, in terms of substandards? Because there's always a notion that regulatory is more responsible for what is in the market. They are responsible for making sure there are no counterfeits. We don't have substandard goods because everything at the end of the day passes through the regulator. Because there's nothing that will come in the country without the knowledge of PPB. But yet, for some reason, we still have them in the market. So I will try to look at what regulatory frameworks we have that I know of. There might be others. And then I will also try to see how we as local manufacturers, as well, like overall as a manufacturing industry, how we can curb counterfeits. I put the definitions for substandard and falsified because I was told for some reason in 2017, we no longer call them counterfeits. We call them substandard and falsified medicines. So I will be talking more towards substandard and falsified. So substandard drugs, in short, if you look at that definition, basically they're medicines that are out of specifications. They don't comply to the specifications. For those who have handled medicines, we always have a set of specifications that a drug is tested through. We get the specifications from pharmacopoeias, we get them from different references. We have to follow that. Whatever is written, we have to make sure that we test our products and it complies to those specifications. The product cannot be released into the market if it does not pass the specification. And we always have somebody. And in Kenya, the requirement is that you should have a registered pharmacist going through the entire manufacturing record, making sure that it was manufactured as per GMP, it was tested as per the specifications, it passed. And then only you can release the product. So having substandard products in the market is somewhere where either the regulators did not look at the specifications or what was coming into the market, or what is being presented to the regulators is actually wrong. How do you identify if a product is substandard or it is a falsified medicine product? So for example, one thing you can do is you can check the packaging of the product. As it was mentioned by Kelvin, the mom realized that the medicine she was taking looked slightly different from what she was taking previously. So that is also one example. It can be reported. Or at least she can ask the pharmacist or the doctor who gave the medicine that this looks slightly different from before. We also look for spelling mistakes or grammatical errors because before a labeling is accepted in the industry, we have a lot of people who review the artworks. We look at all the information that is there, and therefore it is expected that you will not have grammatical errors or any mistakes in the labeling. But the moment you start seeing a lot of mistakes labeling, you realize that it did not pass through an authorization process. Second is checking the manufacturing expiring date and ensure any other details on the outer packaging is matching with what is inside. So if you look at a carton, they'll have blisters inside. So ideally, what is written on the outer carton and what is in the blister inside should actually match. The moment you see they're not matching, this means this is a product which has been tampered with. It is not what actually came from the manufacturer. Another option is that people in the market might have blisters and they just took the cartons and placed the blisters inside. So it happens. Ensuring the medicine looks correct. It's not discolored or degraded or somehow has changed color. It happens in a lot of the medicines if it is not packaged in the right packaging material. Some products are sensitive to moisture, so they should be accordingly packed in a good packaging material. But the moment you see some kind of medicines and maybe they used to be white and now they're black, of course there is no patient who will take that medicine because they know. Even the pharmacists who are dispensing them, if they see a discolor, it can also happen in liquids. It can change color. So normally those are brought back as product complaints. And when they come back, they are usually investigated. So there are some of these things that you'll realize in the market for you to know that what I'm actually having in my hand is a substandard, a counterfeit, or a falsified product. So in this case, what you will do, you will discuss with your pharmacist if you bought it from a chemist. If it is from a hospital, you will go back, contact the pharmacist who gave you, and show them your medicines. Tell them that what I'm taking, I don't think it is correct. And as they say in pharmacovigilance, you don't need to be certain, you just need to be suspicious. It's fine. Because at the end of the day, it is you who is going to take the medicine. So the moment, if you're not satisfied, you don't have to take it. Take it back, confirm with your pharmacist, your doctor, whether this is supposed to be like this. And then they will contact the manufacturer. Reporting suspicious medical products to the National Medicines Authority, which in this case, I know we have a very good system of reporting these complaints to the Pharmacy and Poisons Board. And the Pharmacy and Poisons Board also have a very strong PMS department that does report these complaints to the manufacturers because we usually receive them. And accordingly, they give us a timeline within which we should do our investigations and send back a report. The moment they see that, yes, it is a problem, it might not be a counterfeit, but it might be a substandard because it is now out of specification. Either way, it has to be removed from the market. So there is also another issue these days because we are doing a lot of online transactions. When you're buying a medicine online, really there is no guarantee that it is an actual product from the manufacturer, and you can't tell. You'll only tell when the medicine has been delivered to you. So that is why I know that the Pharmacy and Poisons Board have regulations in terms of who can have an online platform. But you have to be very careful because there are those websites as well which might not be registered. And they might even be selling some of these drugs very cheaply in the market. So you have to really differentiate and only get your medicines from authorized platforms. For example, MyDawa is there for medicines. There might be others. But I know there are also others that even I've never heard of, but I see them. So you can't trust all online platforms to buy your medicines from. And a lot of these counterfeit substandards might actually be using such kind of platforms because it is easier for people. It is delivered to your doorstep. You just have to upload a prescription. Sometimes you don't even need a prescription, but the medicines come to you. So it's very important we question where these medicines are actually coming from. These are some of the facts I came across when I was doing some investigation to see what I can present. So it's estimated that 1 in 10 medical products in low and middle income countries where we fall in are actually substandard. So 1 in 10 is a very critical number because the consumption of medicine is very high. So if it is just 1 in 10, it means there is a lot of counterfeits in the market. Counterfeit drugs are pervasive in many sectors of the pharmaceutical market, and a lot of studies have been done where they have identified that it is malarials, antibiotics, HIV medications, vaccines, which have a lot of counterfeit substandard medicines. And the reason for this could be because it is widely used. We also have a lot of these medicines in the market from all over the world. You can't trust which medicine has good quality and which one has not. However, in low and middle income countries and in areas of conflict or civil unrest where usually there is really not much systems, what is important is that you get the medicine in. In these cases, people take advantage. And what even happens many of the times, the drugs might be rejected products, but they were not destroyed. They were kept somewhere and they are now being brought back to the country or in areas where they know that regulations are not there. So existing frameworks that I could think of course, medicines, as I said, will only come into the country through 2 ways. Either they are imported or they're locally manufactured. Now, when drugs are being imported, I know Pharmacy and Poisons Board has systems because they need to know what is coming into the country. They have to give you a permit for it, and they will have their set of documentation they will review. And we go through that because we also do that for our raw materials as well. So systems are there, but now we just need to know how some products manage, despite having all these systems, still make their way through the market. We have a system for post-marketing surveillance where they're always in the market. They will always pick samples from the market, they will test them, and they will notify manufacturers if the samples are not complying. So those systems are there. And we have seen that over the past few years, a lot of the PMS activities have actually been done. They have increased. And we have also seen that the number of recalls have also increased because of a lot of them are through PMS activities. Pharmacovigilance system, again, yes, you'll also be able to identify if a product is substandard or it is counterfeit through pharmacovigilance systems, because what happens when some patient or a health professional reports an adverse event, immediately they will contact the manufacturers. They will let us know that we have received these. Sometimes we have complaints of therapeutic ineffectiveness. They tell you these drugs are not working and the patients have been switched to other medicines. So it is on us as manufacturers to try and see what really happened. Because again, it is our product. And if we release the product into the market, how come it's not working for the patients? So all these things are there. And the other one is GMP inspections, very important, because as much as you are bringing all these products into the market, and as it's mentioned, the patient trusts the regulator because they did what they were supposed to do. One of them is inspecting the manufacturers, making sure they have all the systems, they're following GMP, and they're supplying products which are of the right quality. And that is why the patient has the trust to go to a chemist and buy any medicine because they know it has been passed. So GMP inspections are very important, both for the local manufacturers, for the foreign manufacturers, as long as you're supplying medicines to the market. We also have the Counterfeit Goods Act. This is an act that is in Kenya for controlling and preventing manufacturing and sale of counterfeit goods. The Act defines counterfeit goods and sets out the procedures for enforcement against these products. So it is there. And under the Counterfeit Goods Act, we had the Anti-Counterfeit Agency, through which now they actually enforce all these regulations. So yeah. And I also remember 2 years ago, we had actually been told by the Anti-Counterfeit Agency, that is for all the manufacturers, we were supposed to declare all the products that we manufacture. It was, I think, for them to create a database of what is manufactured locally and also what is supposed to be coming from outside legally, so that anything which is not in that list is questionable because you have no idea where it came from. So we did that activity 2 years ago. We declared all our products. We even declared in case you're importing any finished product and what you're manufacturing locally. KEBS is there. Of course, they have to test the products. They have to make sure the standards are there. We as pharmaceutical manufacturers don't deal so much with KEBS, but when it comes to supplements, then yes, KEBS get involved. So again, it's the same thing. They will inspect your facility. They will look at all your documentation, and only when you pass the inspection, then you'll be given your permit to sell your medicines. So the principle is the same. At the end of the day, you have to inspect who is supplying to your market. Now, that is now on the regulatory frameworks. So let me go to what we can do as local manufacturers. We have the issue of labeling. Very important because we are the ones who design the labels. We need to know what to put on these labels. So a lot of new things are usually added. Some of them we as local manufacturers have implemented, some we have not. But we see a lot of the multinationals and other products, they have all this labeling. Like we have QR codes. So we have recently introduced it in our packaging. So the moment you scan the QR code, it takes you directly to the information of the product. We're also trying to see if there is more information that we can try put in the QR code. We have barcodes which are specific for products, which are again issued through a very, you have to pay for them. They have to give you the codes, that is GS1 codes. So they're very specific for products. Again, you can't use the same codes for more than one product. We also need to have very consistent labeling requirements, and usually in a manufacturing industry, this is an area on its own, just doing labeling. And the reason is you have to maintain consistent requirements. If there's a particular shade that you'd use for that drug, you have to maintain the same shade. Sometimes what happens, you might change your manufacturers, you might change your vendors. At the end of the day, you have to always make sure you're maintaining the same requirements. In the event you change something, the first thing we normally do, of course, is to file a variation. That is to inform our regulators. If they're okay, they'll give us an approval. to go ahead, we also have to sensitize our customers that we have made this change so that tomorrow they don't start thinking it's a counterfeit because it is different from what was there. So again, that is a responsibility for the manufacturer. Making sure that they are consistent, they don't change colors, they don't change the literature. Sometimes even the font style is very important. You have to maintain your font styles. You can't keep changing as and when you feel like. So that is why we actually have a department which have their own procedures, their own SOPs, and they always do as it is, what is written. You can't put a color just because you like it. It has to be what is there. And the reason we do that is so we know when the product is in the market, the patient knows this is my medicine. And patients, they also know the colors of the medicine, so you can't change. If he or she was taking losartan, which was blue in color, don't change. The moment you change it to white, that is it. That patient will never take that medicine. So you see, these are some of the things that can help you differentiate if there are other brands in the market. Strong quality control systems, yes. Now this is to curb substandard goods. As I said, substandards might not really be counterfeits, but these are just products which are out of specification. Now, how do we make sure that we're releasing products into the market which have the right quality? These days we are now moving to softwares because we're trying to move away from manual requirements, you see, because people can easily manipulate data. They can manipulate anything. So we are moving to an era where we are using softwares. They have audit trails. They are inspected. They're validated. Then only you can start using it. And the reason for it is that you will present data that is true. Okay, if the product is failing, it is failing. You will have to accept it and do what is expected to be done. There is no way you can in any way manipulate results to make it pass. So some of these things, it's something that I know a lot of the manufacturers have already started doing because it's not only a requirement of our regulator, it's actually a requirement all over. Any export country, if they come for inspection, our own local regulators, if they come for inspections, they have the trust in you when all you have is softwares because they don't need to ask anything. They know that what you're presenting is correct. And we have a lot of softwares and they should have audit trails. Because right now, even with WHO, data integrity is very important. There is no way you should be able to in any way influence any result. Use of validated softwares I've mentioned, yes. And again, we even have people who come and validate these softwares, these computer systems. Any computer system you use anywhere has to be validated. You can't just buy a software and start using it. It has to be validated, and the reason is that first of all, they will tell you, yes, this system cannot in any way be corrupted. This system will consistently give you the same results that you're expecting it to do. So that is why we validate. Once it is validated, there is a trust that, yes, this system can now be trusted to be used. Personnel who are trained, of course. Requirements are increasing. Pharmacopoeias get changed every now and then. So you should have people who can understand these requirements, understand these procedures, and actually test your products. Usually for us, what is more important usually is at the end. After the product is manufactured, it now goes to QC. Now that is where it will tell you how you manufactured your product. If you in any way took any shortcut, did anything wrong, it will be seen in QC because the product will not pass. And I can tell you any small thing you change, even just changing one excipient and mixing it number 2 instead of number 1, is also a problem. That product will actually fail. So that is why we make sure that in the industry we have a particular set of procedure and it is always followed as is. You should never change because the impact on the product will come. It will come maybe not now, but later on. So this is what we can do as industry, making sure that we have our own systems because when the patient has the trust in us, regulators have the trust in us, we have to maintain that trust. And trust cannot be maintained just by speaking it. We have to show it. So all these systems have to be there. Next page, please. Yes. Collaboration with regulatory authorities closely, anti-counterfeit agencies. As I said, we have PPB always sends us market complaints if there are any. They give us timelines. We go through a root cause analysis investigation. We supply them with the root cause analysis. Basically, we are telling them why this happened. So first of all, what happens when you get a market complaint, you'll verify if it is your product first. That is the first thing you do. Is it your product? Because you cannot start investigating something which is not yours. In the event you find out that what is being complained is not yours, you have never manufactured that batch, you will send it back to PPB and inform them. Then that now takes a completely different route. If you find out it is yours, the next thing is now to look at what has been complained, do your investigation, and then report back to PPB. If you realize it was an issue which was an error in terms of storage, in terms of handling, we will inform them the same. If we realize that it's a product that actually has an issue, then the next step is usually a product recall, which again is in liaison with the regulator to make sure that yes, everything that was distributed has actually been recalled from the market. Strengthening our supply chain integrity. Now from our side, what we can do as manufacturers, we only sell to licensed outlets, and we get every start of the year, we have a list of our customers, we get licenses from them, we verify even by scanning the codes. We have to verify all that. Only when we trust, yes, that we are satisfied that yes, this person is actually working in this place, the chemist, the pharmacy, the hospital is registered, then only we now start selling to them. So it's an activity we do every year. A new customer is only qualified when they give us their licenses. So in that way, we are making sure that yes, we are selling to outlets that actually have qualified people handling the place. Maintain accurate stock records. Yes, as I said, as a manufacturer, it is our responsibility to maintain the stock of what we're introducing into the market everywhere. Even if you export it out of the country, you have to maintain a stock where it has gone. The expectation is that the distributor on the other side also maintains a stock. In the event there is a recall or there is a problem, you should have records of your own. And normally for us, we either have stock cards or we have software systems which will maintain these records for us. And at the end of the day, we also do a reconciliation that yet what we supplied is actually what has been sold. Authorized use of packaging materials, yes. So what happens, as a manufacturers, we own these packaging materials, and we usually have very strict controls in manufacturing to make sure that there is a control on the packaging materials. When we receive them, they go through the process of testing, they're stored. You can only access them if you're authorized to be in the area, so you should not be able to touch those packaging materials unless you're supposed to be there. Once they are printed with the batch details, they're always kept under lock and key. Nobody can access those packaging materials because now those are the most risky because they already have your batch number, your expiry, and your manufacturing details. So those are always kept under lock and key. We have a QA system, maintains them. So the only reason we do that is that those cartons should not find themselves outside, other than those of what we are introducing, we're releasing. Another one, what we can also usually do, if a batch has been rejected, either through QC analysis, it was out of spec, it failed, okay? We have to make sure we have reconciled the entire batch. The reason for this is we don't want to find that product which failed out in the market. You see, we might never know. For us, we rejected the product, we expected it has gone for destruction. If there is no control, you might actually find those same products which had failed in the market because they are packaged, very well done. Blisters are there, inserts are there, the product is actually ready for use, only that it failed. So, how we do destruction also, we have PPB. We let them know that this is the items which are going for destruction. We have a person who actually comes from the PPB. They verify that yes, these drugs, these are the kilos, this is everything, and they are there to see that the destruction has happened. And we take the responsibility of maintaining the records that yes, with the entire batch, everything, right from QC, any sample that went anywhere is recalled back and destroyed. So some of the things we can do to help. Regulatory compliance, yes. Now, we need to be sourcing our APIs, our excipients, our packaging materials from approved vendors. Manufacturers have a whole vendor qualification system. We only approve people who pass our specifications. We tell them, this is the material we want, these are our specifications. You need to have you should have gone through your own GMP inspection. We also send auditors over there to make sure that who we are buying from is actually supplying us the material they are saying. And every time that they give us material, they have to give us a certificate of analysis. Though we also do our own analysis, we don't rely on what they give us. They give us a certificate, and then we also analyze ourselves. Then it will tell you, yes, it is actually passing, and then only we use it into the production. Now, that is what we are supposed to do as local manufacturer, and it is expected from each and every manufacturer, whether local and outside. This is just one of an alert which I picked, and it is one of ways, you can see how an alert can actually help. So this was a substandard product. It passed through QC. We can't say it was a counterfeit. It was actually a substandard. So I know all of you have heard of syrups which are contaminated by diethylene and ethylene glycol impurities. So it was first detected in Maldives. So this I picked from a WHO presentation. It was first picked in Maldives. A confirmatory test was conducted by Australia. They informed the NRA in Pakistan, because that is where the drug had been manufactured, that we have come across this product and it's failing. The Pakistan NRA then identified further contaminated products and shared the distribution list. And then from there, they picked where the product had actually been distributed and informed all the respective NRAs that this drug is actually contaminated and it should immediately be recalled. So 23 batch numbers were identified, which affected 5 countries because of the contamination. We know that we had incidences where children passed away because it was not identified early. This is also how much control the regulator has, but it's also how much how much are we aware of what is happening. So right now, regulatory compliance, we know what is basic, what is required, but there are new things which are coming up. We have a lot of impurities which right now they're telling us they're carcinogenic. So are we testing them? As much as we know about it, but what are we doing as local manufacturers? So this is one. This is diethylene ethylene contamination. There is a lot of studies which have been done. So it is our role to make sure if I have products which are high risk, I have to test them before I introduce them into the market. We have nitrosamine impurities, also carcinogenic. We've been in discussion since 2019 when it was first identified. Same thing. We are being expected to make sure that if we have identified a risk, we test the product and then only release it into the market. So a lot of these things are how aware you are in terms of regulatory, what is happening outside, and accepting that we have to do these tests. Sometimes what happens, we feel it is extra work, it is very expensive, but at the end of the day, again, it is patients' lives. And we always have to put the patient first. It's not how costly it is to you, but it's also trusting because these are kids who passed away with no mistake. It was really not their fault. So these are just some of the facts that I picked. Really, substandard and falsified medicines have a very high impact, and a lot because there is also a notion where a lot of the rejected products for some reason are usually dumped in Africa. We are no exceptions. I'm very sure we have a lot of these medicines which somehow find their way through the borders into the country. You have a parent who is taking an antihypertensive, a diabetic medicine. It's not working for some reason, and we all know that hypertension has to be very well controlled. You cannot give substandard medicines to a hypertensive patient, a diabetic patient. It's very critical. People can lose lives. So some of these things you might feel maybe it's away from you, but it's really so near because you don't know who is taking these medicines. And yes, countries which have very poor governance, poor pharmacovigilance systems, they are at a greatest risk. And the reason is that these people who bring the products already know there is nobody in that country to identify that this product will not really work. Yeah, next page. So what I would say, and please don't take that first statement wrongly, we really need to control what we're importing. The reason I say this is we have imports which come from good manufacturers, regulated manufacturers. We also have imports coming from countries where regulations, or I can say they're actually made specifically for Africa. We've had it. I'm not going to say names. But they actually tell you, if you want a cheaper product, we have. If you want a good product, we have. The choice is yours. It will comply, but they have already informed you in advance. So that is maybe to PPB. that we really need to control our products. We need to, and the more products we have in the market, it is very difficult to control this product. It is very difficult to control the manufacturers. Better have less products from controlled markets, from controlled manufacturers. And the goodness of having a lot of these locally manufactured is you can literally walk into the industry and find out if this product was actually manufactured, if they're actually having the GMP systems that they say they have. We don't have much control of what is outside of the country. We need to only buy medicines from authorized outlets, again, as I said. These authorized outlets know where they're buying the medicines from because they have pharmacists, pharm techs who take responsibility for these medicines. They know what they're giving to the patients. And we need to report all adverse events. Again, we will not know, like I will not know at Cosmos if there is any counterfeit in the market unless it is reported, or unless our marketing team will come and tell us, Beena, there's a medicine which is being complained, and then we start our investigations. So we need to report everything. Whether you think it is okay or not, it's better to be reported. Thank you.
I think my take-home message is it's not a matter that I'm uncertain, they just need to be curious.
Yes.
Right?
Suspicious, yes.
And thank you very much. Any questions to Dr. Beena? I have 2 questions, but I don't want to override those from the floor. So, anybody? All right, so I've not blocked out anybody. I have 2 questions, Dr. Beena. One is, so Newton mentioned that most of the people who enter the market with substandard falsified medicines also come in claiming that they are trying to fill a niche, right, in terms of shortage.
Yes.
So how are local manufacturers, or what role do local manufacturers have to do around being able to ensure that the market is actually adequately supplied? I'll give an example. So we could use COVID, but I think we can also use very different contexts as well, right? Where, so there's a product you know has been in circulation, and then all of a sudden you can't find it anywhere, okay? And then it also, there's this pack that can equally serve the purpose. So what are local manufacturers doing to proactively, actually from a production point of view, also be able to address the aspect of shortage? Yeah, that would be my first question.
Okay, so what I can say, I know there is a lot right now around local manufacturing. There is a lot of plans being brought up. We even recently had a study that was conducted by MOH where they actually wanted to see which are the gaps in the local manufacturing and why are we not able to supply what is actually demanded in the market. Actually, they identified that local manufacturers only supply close to 25 to 30% of the essential medicines. Now, what we can say is, again, it will come back to imports. If imports are less, demand is there, we will make it for you. What you will see in a lot of, and we are examples, we had a range of anti-malarials which were being done back in the day. Right now, we no longer do anti-malarials, we no longer do anti-TBs, we don't do HIV medicines, and the reason is because the market is already flooded with very cheap medicines. We can't compete. Because I'm not going to make a cheap medicine for you just because I need to fill the demand. You see, I have a whole lot of standards I have to comply to. So I will still come to create the demand, we will make it for you.
I want to ask how, as a market, right? So I think there's an element that for me is very clear in terms of what the regulator can do. Okay. What can we do in this room? I'm not going to ask you to answer the question, but what can we do in this room to kind of answer the question that has just been thrown back to us? My second question is with regards to the patient now at the center of all this. So you've mentioned quite a number of things, the barcoding and everything else. Are there platforms, or where can someone who does not have pharmacy background or medical background go and get information around how to identify falsified medicines? Is it in the PILs? Is there a place they can go, and a website they can visit and get insights?
Okay, what I know is every company, most of the company have their official websites. And in the official websites, they have declared what their product list is. The only thing is that I don't think, unless it is reported, we cannot know if there is a falsified medicine of my brand in the market. Question when you come to labeling. Now the QR code is there. Now, QR code again, you see, it's not 100% of Kenyans who have smartphones. So not everybody will be able to access the QR code. And that is the reason that we have still kept the inserts for the people who cannot access the QR code. Now, the inserts are usually made, there is usually a lot of information we can put, but we pick what we feel is relevant and something which even the pharmacist or the patient can read and understand what is required. So as much information as we can, we put it there. And sometimes what happens, because when things are reported, like as I said, if adverse events are reported, it will also help us know what more we can put. Okay, if there are new side effects or anything new that is coming, or somebody can just tell you that, your insert is lacking this much information. And that is why we need pharmacists, pharmtech, who are actually dispensing medicines to patients to go through the inserts and then prescribe it for the, dispense it to the patient. So, okay, I cannot say we have done a lot, but we are trying. As much as we can based on information we get, we try to see how we can, cover the gap.
Thank you very much. We have a question.
Yes, good evening. My name is Barasa Bristol Makari, and Daktari, I also have a question just to add on what has been asked. On the issue of track and trace, tracking where the product, how the product is moving, where it is, and then tracing where it has come from. That was also one of the concepts we covered in the pharmaceutical supply chain management course. And so I would wish to really get an understanding of your point, or how as local manufacturers, you are also empowering maybe pharmacists or pharmaceutical technologies at the point of use. How can they be able to track where the product is, and where the product, to trace where the product has come from? Because when you talk about counterfeits, these products get into the market somewhere in the supply chain pipeline. So how can they be able to, how have you empowered them to track and trace? Thank you.
Okay, so in terms of records, what I can say is we have a requirement of a mock recall as a company. Okay, what we do in a mock recall is we imitate a recall. So it starts from us. So you select a product, you follow that product. Okay, so let's say I have metformin 500 for Cosmos. Right from our warehouse, we start, and you're given a timeline. So you have to make sure you have the records. Then you go to the people you distributed to. You confirm with them how much stock they have, how much they received. After that, you have to confirm where they distributed it to. So the expectation is that the other people also have records. All these things, if they are not there, they are captured. Once the mock recall is done, then we identify whether we as a company have passed or failed. Failed means maybe you don't have enough systems, or you've identified a problem. In that case, if we now need to inform distributors that maybe because they didn't have records, that is why this did not go well. And the reason we do that is just in the event one day we have an actual recall, how will you know where the product went? Because it becomes very difficult to, if you're told to 100% withdraw your product, recall from the market. Without records, you can't do. That is one thing we do. Second is when you talked about track and trace, I know that some few years ago we had a discussion. PPB was there, I think there's so many other stakeholders, where we wanted to introduce, I've forgotten the term, but there's a mark we wanted to introduce. So that mark was supposed to be put on each and every carton, each and every product you have. Then that would have helped to trace where the product is moving to. However, what I can say, we have not really done much in that, because we realized that the complexities around logistics was a lot. And normally what also happens, we try to look at what is the risk versus the benefit, because again, we cannot introduce new measures if they become very expensive for the product, because again, we have the affordability issue. But yes, the only thing we can say is we expect that all outlets should maintain a record of who they're selling the product to. And if it is now critical to get it from the patient, because now you see you can't be writing each patient's names and contact details every time. There we now do a media release, like you might have seen. So in that case, what happens, in case you come across that information, you bring back the product. But we try as much as possible to work with the distributors, the chemists, the retailers, as much as possible to try and get the drugs back.